All right, everyone, the results are in. We've taken this survey now on your social networks, and I wanted to share the results with you. About 36 of you, so a little over half of the class, took the quiz, or took the survey rather. So this gives us a pretty decent sample to work with to understand in our class what do our social networks look like. And so I wanted to do this just both to show you the kind of how to use the concepts of social networks, but also how it is that sociologists go about gathering data and analyzing those data. So we can see a little bit about how it is that social network analysts would use a survey to collect data on social networks. I modeled this exactly after the General Social Survey, which is a pretty prominent survey in the U.S. And they have these questions on your social network. And so I use those questions here so we could get a sense of how our social networks all look, at least back in high school. So let's take a look then at the results. So how many friends, I asked you first, how many close friends really did you have in high school? People that you talk with on a regular basis, that you confide in, that you share information with, talk about important issues with. And on this one, there was a pretty even distribution of just how many close friends you guys all have. So it's important to see one feature of these data right away, which is that no one was in this social isolate category where you had no close friends. There was no one who responded to our survey who said there was no one that they talked about important matters with. So there are no social isolates who are sort of isolated and outside of a social network altogether. So that's important feature number one. But then there's a pretty even distribution where about a third of you said you had 1 to 3 close friends. About another third of you said you had 4 to 5 close friends. And then the final third or so said you had a lot of friends, 6 or more very close friends from high school. So that's an interesting feature of the data so far. But the next question was, well, how many of your friends were also friends with each other? So now we're getting at that network structure. What's not just your relationship to other people, but their relationship to other people as well. And so you can think about how tightly knit then social networks are. And here there's what we can think about as kind of a bifurcated distribution, where about a little under 40% of you said that 1 to 3 of your close friends were also friends with each other. And then another third of you said all of your friends, all of your close friends were also friends with each other. And so that all categories are really tight network where everyone knows and is interacting with and exchanging information with each other. That's a kind of tight-knit circle of friends, right? So we can think about those as two different kinds of network structures, right? Certainly the zero network structure is one where none of your friends are friends with each other. And that's a case where sort of you're friends with lots of different people, the kind of samplers that McCabe talked about. You are friends with lots of other people, but they are not friends with each other. Versus this very tight-knit circle where all of your friends are also friends with each other. Now, I asked you another set of questions to really get at the characteristics of who your friends are relative to who you are. And remember, that's the principle of homophily. Where this tendency where people who have shared characteristics tend to end up being friends with those who also share those same characteristics. And so we captured a set of categories where we can think about really the question is, are these people the same on this dimension as you are? And so we did this for religion, for gender identity, for race and ethnic identity, and then for whether or not those people also went to college. A kind of measure here of what we'll talk about later as social class, or more precisely of socioeconomic status. So, and it turns out you guys have pretty homophilous social networks. The place where this is least true is in terms of religion and race and ethnicity. It's the least true actually of race and ethnicity, where just over half of you, about 55% of you said yes, the person that you were closest to in high school, that person who's your closest confidant, was a person of the same race or ethnicity of you. And then a little over 60% of you over here said that person was of the same religion as you. And here I have to say I've excluded from the analysis the I don't knows, the people who didn't know, but this was the category where there was the greatest proportion of people who said they didn't know about the that person's religious affiliation. But even there, only a little over 8% of you put that down. So then let's look at gender identity, and this is one where this is very common, where people tend to be close confidants, have a close personal relationship with people who share their same gender identity. And so in this case, really 3/4 of you, just about 3/4 of you wrote that the person who you were closest to in high school was the person who shared your gender identity. Now, this final piece here is also really notable, that all of you were in college, and almost all of you said the person that you were closest to in high school is also in college now. So that's a very, you can see that as a very homophilous pattern, where people who are likely to go to college, who are in the same socioeconomic status, tend then to interact with and engage with others who are in that same socioeconomic status. Now, it should be pointed out here, there's a really important overlap between institutions and social networks, because educational institutions also tend to be very homogeneous in terms of their socioeconomic status, right? That is to say, we tend to go to high schools with people who are already of the same socioeconomic status as us, and therefore we tend to, this could be also be at least part understood as an institutional effect, where the institution itself is shaping what the social networks look like. All right, so this gives you now you get to see the results from the survey that you've taken, but it also gives you a way to think about and understand how it is that sociologists use data, how it is that we use data and analyze data on social networks, and also how we can understand these patterns like homophily, and really see them in our own daily lives. All right, so that's it for social networks in the survey. I hope to chat with you guys soon.